Welcome to your FinCast discussion, all about Intel stock. Get this.
Okay.
In just the past 3 days, Intel has seen a 16.4% jump,
Wow.
its biggest surge since way back in 2002.
That's impressive.
So we're going to dig into whether this growth is sustainable or if it's just a blip on the radar.
Right.
And of course, we'll explore whether you should consider adding Intel to your investment portfolio.
Sounds good.
What's driving this sudden surge in Intel's stock price?
Well, a lot of it has to do with this recent push towards what some are calling AI nationalism.
AI nationalism.
Yeah.
What is that?
Well, it all kind of kicked off with these comments from Vice President J.D. Vance at the 2025 Paris Artificial Intelligence Action Summit.
Okay.
He basically said the administration is committed to making sure that the most powerful AI systems are built right here in the U.S.
Okay.
using American design and manufactured chips.
Interesting.
And, investors are always looking for the next big thing. So they're starting to zero in on companies like Intel that actually manufacture their chips domestically.
So Intel's kind of in the right place at the right time with this whole AI nationalism thing.
Exactly.
They design and manufacture chips in the U.S., unlike a lot of their competitors who rely on overseas manufacturing.
Right.
So is that what's driving this surge? The hope that government support for American-made chips, like the funding from the CCHIPS Act, will benefit Intel.
Yeah, that seems to be the bet a lot of investors are making.
I see.
And there's this report from Blaine Curtis, an analyst over at Jefferies.
Mm-hmm.
He's suggesting that Intel is gaining momentum in central processing units,
Okay.
or CPUs, as they're known, the brains of computers, thanks to their new Emerald Rapids product.
CPUs. For
Yeah.
those of us who need a quick refresher, why is this significant?
Sure, CPUs are basically the heart of most computing devices.
Right.
And historically, Intel has dominated this market.
Yeah.
So seeing them gain ground again with a new product is
Mhm.
a pretty positive sign, especially if the government is really going to be pushing for this domestic chip production.
Right.
It suggests they might be able to recapture some of that lost market share.
So we've got potential government support for U.S.-made chips.
Mm.
And Intel seems to have a promising new product.
Yeah. But I have a feeling it's not all smooth sailing for Intel, is it?
Well, you're right.
Okay.
Despite this recent surge, Intel still faces challenges in keeping up with competitors and evolving industry trends.
Like what?
Well, for starters, their manufacturing arm has been struggling financially.
Really?
Yeah, and it's been losing money,
Hmm.
despite the potential boost it could get from this government support.
That makes sense. It also makes you wonder about the long-term sustainability, right?
Yeah.
If they can't figure out how to make money from manufacturing,
Mm-hmm.
all the government funding in the world might not be enough.
You're absolutely right.
And what about leadership at Intel?
Oh, that's another big question mark.
Yeah.
Remember, Intel is still operating without a permanent CEO after Pat Gelsinger left
Oh, that's right.
back in late 2024.
So there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding Intel's future direction.
Absolutely.
It's interesting,
Yeah.
I've even heard whispers about Intel potentially being a takeover target.
Yeah. It wouldn't be surprising.
Really?
Some analysts believe that another company might try to buy them,
Huh.
either fully or just a part of the company.
Why would they do that?
Well, they might be looking to capitalize on Intel's manufacturing capabilities
Oh, okay.
and their potential growth in the AI space.
So we've got potential government support, a promising new product,
Mm-hmm.
but also financial struggles and a leadership vacuum and the possibility of a takeover.
It's complicated.
It's a pretty complex picture.
Yeah.
Where should we even begin to unravel this?
Well, I think a good place to start is by taking a closer look at Intel's plan to spin off its foundry business, Intel Foundry Services.
Okay.
This is where things get particularly interesting.
Intel Foundry Services, what is that all about?
Okay, so essentially a foundry manufactures chips for other companies.
Okay.
It's kind of like a contract manufacturer in the chip world.
Like they're making chips that other companies designed.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And for Intel, this division, the foundry part,
Yeah.
has actually been losing money.
Really? So why not just shut it down?
Well, that's the thing.
Oh.
It seems like Intel sees some potential in this foundry business.
Okay.
They actually just struck a deal with Amazon Web Services, or AMZN, to manufacture high-end chips.
So they're not giving up on it.
Not yet, no.
It seems like a risky move.
It is, but remember we were talking about the U.S. government and their push for domestic chip production.
Right.
Having a successful U.S.-based foundry
Yeah.
could actually play right into that.
It's like a strategic asset.
Exactly.
less vulnerable to all the global stuff going on.
Exactly. It's all about reducing reliance on those overseas manufacturers.
That makes a lot of sense. But,
Yeah.
if this foundry business was such a good idea,
Uh-huh.
why spin it off at all?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it really highlights how tricky this whole situation is.
Okay.
Running a foundry is expensive
I bet.
and incredibly demanding from a tech standpoint.
I can imagine.
It needs huge investments in R&D, you need specialized equipment,
Yeah.
and highly skilled engineers. It's a big undertaking.
So maybe spinning it off frees up Intel to focus on what they're good at,
That's the idea.
chip design,
Yes.
and they can still benefit from the foundry's growth
Exactly.
without having to shoulder all the risks themselves.
They could still have some ownership, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
They're basically trying to play both sides of the field,
Interesting.
focus on design, and potentially reap the rewards of a successful foundry.
It's a clever strategy, if it works.
Exactly, but it's not like flipping a switch.
Right.
The spinoff is going to be complicated.
Yeah, I bet.
And Intel is making some big moves,
Like what?
like pausing construction on that huge $32 billion foundry site in Germany.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I read about that.
Big decision.
That's a lot of money.
It is. Why would they stop it?
Seems like they're reevaluating their global strategy
Yeah.
and maybe shifting focus back to the U.S.
With all the talk about domestic chips.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got this spinoff,
Uh,
big investments,
yeah.
and a push towards U.S. manufacturing.
Right?
But then there's this rumor about a partnership with TSMC.
You're on top of it?
I try to be.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
TSMC is like their biggest competitor, right?
Hell of them. Yeah.
It seems crazy that they would partner up.
No, right?
What's the thinking there?
Well, the report suggests that TSMC might send engineers to Intel's U.S. plants.
Okay.
And potentially, they could end up with a jointly owned foundry
Whoa.
run by TSMC.
So Intel, a U.S. company,
Yes.
teams up with TSMC, a Taiwanese company,
Mhm.
to create this new super foundry.
It's a possibility, and this new entity might even be eligible for more funding from that GPS Act.
Because of the U.S. involvement?
Exactly.
It's like a real-life corporate thriller or something?
It kind of is.
So with all of these moving pieces,
Yeah,
what does it mean for someone thinking about investing in Intel?
that's the big question.
Should they be excited about this potential TSMC partnership?
Well,
Or are there just too many unknowns?
to answer that, we need to put it all together. To answer that, we need to kind of step back and look at the whole picture.
Okay, so big picture time. What are we looking at here with Intel?
It's a company with a ton of potential,
Uh-huh.
but they're also facing some serious challenges.
Oh, right, we've been talking about, yeah.
Yeah, the government support could be huge.
Right.
And the foundry business, especially with this possible TSMC thing, could be a real game changer.
But they could pull it off.
Exactly. But then there's the other side of the coin.
The not so pretty side.
Yeah, their manufacturing costs are a problem.
Right, they're losing money,
Mm-hmm. And no permanent CEO.
which always adds uncertainty.
Big time. And let's not forget the competition.
Companies like NVIDIA, who are killing it in the AI space.
Yeah, they're definitely playing catch up in that area.
Yeah. So how do we weigh all of this?
It's tough.
Is it a buy or a sell?
It really depends on your risk tolerance
Okay.
and your investment goals.
So classic high-risk, high-reward scenario.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
Lots of potential. But a lot could go wrong, too.
Exactly.
Any final thoughts for our listeners who are trying to decide what to do with Intel?
Well, I think the key takeaway here is that Intel's at a crossroads. They're facing these huge challenges, but they also have some really unique opportunities.
With the government and potentially with TSMC.
Right? The next few years will be make or break for them.
So buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride.
For sure. It's a classic tech industry story, transformation, competition, the whole 9 yards.
And we'll be here to cover it every step of the way.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive into Intel.
My pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring and keep diving deep.